Hello, everyone. This is Enamul Haque from Bangladesh, and I'm with my friend Philip Shah from Canada. As you know, that we have East-West debate every month, and this month with Philip Shah, we are going to discuss the way the new financial transaction mechanism is evolving globally. In particular, as SWIFT has been selected for banning certain countries out of its transaction, there has been a move around the world to change or find an alternative. And with that, there are countries in BRICS particularly has developed a payment gateway for their own with local currency rather than any specific currency of a country. That's what they have done. Same thing, the American also did the same thing. They have started what is known as central bank digital currency transaction, which is a new form and is already in pilot by certain banks in the United States for business transaction only, not for individuals. So this new mechanism of transaction happening and is probably going to change this particular scenario for the financial transaction around the world. So with that, let me ask my friend Philip Shah, what does he think about it? Phil.
This is also new. And for somebody sitting in the western part of the world, 17 kilometers away from the United States, it's almost unimaginable that the rest of the world would want to do this based on a system that we've had for so long. But, we've talked a little bit about this before when we were talking about de-dollarization. Now, I know this is not what this is. From a Western perspective, the SWIFT system of transactions, that was as normal as breathing oxygen over here. But I understand that from the other side of the world, whether that's Central Africa or South America or South Asia or East Asia, I've always understood from the other side of the world that, sometimes things take place that don't seem fair. And so, when the SWIFT system was changed, there was a lot of trust that was threatened in different parts of the world. And, different parts of the world have a different political outlook and a different economic outlook oftentimes. And they wanted a transaction system that might be more fair to them and that they could rely on and not be pulled away. So it's something that's hard for us to get around on. It's hard for me to get around on with regard to how the financial system works outside of the American umbrella that I'm clearly under here in Canada. But I was just saying to Dr. Haque before we started that I was in the Rainbow Restaurant in Sylhet, Bangladesh about 4 years ago. And on the outside, they had Visa, MasterCard, and something called Union Pay. I didn't even know what Union Pay was. But of course, that's a kind of a Chinese backed credit card, similar to Visa and MasterCard in that part of the world. So, I can understand. I can understand how the rest of the world might be looking for something where transactions are done in a manner outside of the SWIFT envelope and something that they can trust to be there. When we start talking about digital currency, that gets very, very involved. And of course, it's hard for me to imagine how Brazil sells more soybeans, they export more soybeans and corn than anybody else in the world now, and how they might not take back American dollars for those commodities, especially when they sell to China. They might be taking Chinese yuan back in purchasing Brazilian real. So it is interesting, but from a Western perspective, it's hard to get my head around. But you've got lots of experience with this, Enamul, how people feel from your side of the world.
Thank you. No, I think what you mentioned is very important because it is actually not that people, it started as a move as de-dollarization. In other words, when the SWIFT cut off Russian from the SWIFT transaction system, the Russian took the move and they wanted to do this. They wanted to find an alternative because they realized that this could have been, this could be strategically made to make them, I would say, accept certain rules or rule of the game played by the United States. So they wanted to change it. On the other hand, Chinese are also worried because the Taiwan case is everywhere up and down. And so they also realized that at some point in time, if they have $3 or $4 trillion reserve of American dollars, that means any time that could be in trouble, particularly with US Treasury bonds, because these bonds has to be paid by the United States government. If it is a currency, they can use it somewhere else. But if it is a treasury bond, they're holding US bonds. That means they have to return it to the US government and say, give my money back. So that actually created a trouble for them. And if you have a lot of US dollar in your reserve, you need to invest somewhere. So that is one part of the problem. The second problem is countries around the world, let's say Middle East, for example, or Iran, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, they all had found out that sometimes all of a sudden, American political game, either because of Israel game or because of something else, they actually get their, or even democracy, in the name of democracy, they have their property confiscated, which is true for Iran, which is true for Iraq, and many other countries from time to time in the history. So given these were small countries, they didn't really want to say much. They were looking for alternative. That's why I still remember there was a time when Saudi Arabia was trying to invest in India rather than in any other country, because they realized India will not be able to make similar political move against Saudi Arabia. So that was their strategy. But after this SWIFT, and SWIFT in particular, very important because SWIFT was the most trusted independent mechanism for dollar-based transactions, even though it is controlled by the Federal Reserve Bank of US. But anytime transaction happens, it's cleared by the SWIFT headquarters in Europe. This time, because the war in Ukraine, which was happening in Europe, Europe became very emotional and broke the trust that everyone held on them. And the result was, because of the Russian move, because of the Chinese worry about the future, both are, and these are big economies. So previously, these were not big economies. These are big economies. So they started realizing that we need to shift some of our resources out of dollars. That's how the de-dollarization move came. And
what percentage were you talking about how it's changed through the years? A certain percentage you were talking about, I think.
It was till before the Ukraine war, it was almost 70 to 80% of the global transaction was happening in dollars. Now, after this, it's not very many years. It's only 21 to right now. If you look carefully, it's not a long time, 22, 23. Within 2 years, it is below 60% now.
Yeah, that's significant.
That's significant drop. And they're expecting this will go down. Now, as the, I would say the Russian and the Chinese was thinking this is the de-dollarization. To me, it's not a full de-dollarization. Although we talked about it, we flagged it in our May episode, if you remember. We said that this is a move coming. But this time, every party is becoming so. Number one, for example, BRICS Bank, which is a bank of the BRICS countries, have created membership. Many countries are member of that, including Bangladesh. And they are making a clearinghouse of global transaction between these countries. And they are trying to increase more membership within the BRICS Bank. The result is they are going to change this transaction in local currency. This is an interesting move. When you say in local currency, you need a basis for it, and they are going back to gold standard, which means and that is why Chinese are buying a lot of gold also in their reserve, because they understand gold will be a better standard rather than dollar standard. So that's exactly what they're doing. So that is what's happening in the BRICS Bank, and they are making transaction in local currencies. Either in
keep in mind that, I was unaware that, when we talk about the BRICS countries, it's, it's China, Russia, India, South Africa, Brazil. There's a few others that are involved in the BRICS countries. And what Dr. Haque's talking about is the BRICS Bank, which I was not aware of. And I suppose with that as a backdrop, one thing that is always a problem in third world countries is the access to foreign exchange. And you would think that this would do some good in that regard in places like Africa as well, and other places that could access foreign exchange through a BRICS bank and through currency exchange like that.
Yes, that is what the strategy was. In fact, that has Bangladesh, for example, was prompted into it probably, this is not sure, but probably after the debacle of the Padma Bridge. If you remember, the Padma Bridge,
Yeah.
World Bank refused to pay for it on the plea that there's a huge corruption there. So
Yeah.
every country realized that they are threatened either way, either because of corruption or because of democracy or because of a war. This is a political use of the currency exchange. And that prompted many countries to find an alternative. I understand at the same time, and I think everyone should understand that while American economy became a large economy, European economy also became a large economy. You cannot throw away dollar out of it. So dollar will be there. But at the same time, Asian countries are becoming larger and larger. And the strategy that BRICS have done, if you remember, they have included some of the larger countries from every continent into the BRICS fold now. So Argentina is on there, Saudi Arabia is already included in the BRICS currency, in the BRICS. Yeah. Indonesia has today showed interest officially to go to the BRICS. And the BRICS Bank is where India even a member. So all these are basically, and the trade between them is going to go up over time. And as this will go up, and in particular, if I remember that China is one of the largest buying country also. So they buy products from many countries. Brazil is not only just Brazil, even from India and the other. So everyone, when they're buying, they're trying to make sure everyone use their local currency and transaction in gold standard. So that itself is going to push away the dominance of dollar. I would say that is what people would say de-dollarization. But what they are saying, dominant, Bangladesh currency originally was pegged with US dollar. So our exchange rate is all pegged with US dollars, which they are now trying to move from US dollar to the gold reserves in many countries. That's what the strategies are, which will take time because many countries do not have enough gold reserve. So it will take time for countries to accept that. And obviously that is a move, but it's an important, it's a wake-up call. It's a wake-up call for realizing that economic transaction and political transaction should not be linked together in every scenario. So I think that is a very important wake-up call for the world. And probably this move is not the last move, or this was not the first move either. There are many other times people try to do it. American dollar is so powerful, it held its position back. And it is time for us to rethink, again, to think about how to do this. As I said today, the central bank digital currency proposed by the United States Federal Reserve and given a pilot go ahead with it, which means they are trying to also come back and developing a trust with the blockchain built in it. So it's not that it's going as a one-way deal and it has to be completed, but it may come back. So I think there is wait and see game. But this is a wake-up call for everyone.
Yeah, it certainly is something new for us on this side of the world to think about when we're dominated by our American friends so much. But and of course, as you say, there's going to be a transition as these economies grow outside of the United States. This probably will become even more important. But it certainly is an interesting aspect to our world economic system and how money moves around the world.
With that, thank you. Today, we are going to finish our talk today, but we have an announcement. Our channel will also be on air with rumble.com. So if you are a member of rumble.com, you can also see it on YouTube, but also on rumble.com. Thank you. Thank you very much.